4 CEOs in 5 years at Yahoo. The mess just continues to go on. We have Rolfe Winkler from Heard on the Street, who's written extensively about Yahoo, and Neal Lipschutz, editor of Dow Jones Newswires and an expert on corporate governance, to tell us what we should think about this. First of all, going to Neal, this has turned into an amazing mess in terms of this executive turnover at Yahoo. What have they done wrong? How have they got into this situation?
Well, if we talk about the latest situation, I think one of the truths that come out of this is that regardless of how this misinformation got on his resume, there's no...
With the resume, we're talking about Scott Thompson.
We're talking about Scott Thompson and his college major. That no issue is too small to potentially bring down a business leader. If you think about what that fact is and what the consequence was, they seem out of alignment. But that's where the world is today, and that's where boards have to be, I think, because of the public pressure, because of the spotlight, that any misstatement, no matter how seemingly small, it could very well lead to a disjointed career.
And do you think, so we have an activist investor, Dan Loeb, who's taken a stake in the company and has really pushed these changes. Scott Thompson had this issue with his resume, has ended up stepping down from the board. We've now got an interim CEO, Ross Levinson. You know, is it right that Dan Loeb has had this amount of power with his stake to actually force these changes on the board, Rolfe?
Maybe. I mean, he's the last one standing, right? Everybody's kind of resigned to Yahoo being a great internet giant that is just going to collapse at some point. And Dan Loeb is one of the last guys to say, all right, I'll take a 6% stake. I think there's some value left over, and you know what? But we've got to break this thing up. The board has been too insular for so long.
Before we go into that, just talking of last man standing, I mean, Ross Levinson's been put in as interim CEO because he's largely because he's there, I think, and he may or may not be a suitable candidate. I mean, what do they as a board now need to do? Because you've got another CEO, he's interim, it's not clear he's been really selected for the right reasons. And how should they play this?
And the board has changed over to a large degree too. I think the fascinating point about Dan Loeb and the 6% and getting 3 board seats is it shows the increased power, especially when a company starts to struggle, the increased power that institutional investors can have, even absent some of the rules that got debated about proxy access and nominating your own directors. You know, time and again, activist investors have shown you don't really need that. And from sort of an investor democracy point of view, this is probably a positive thing. You know, it's a 6% ownership stake, but it's new ideas and it's new blood. And, you know, and it's, to Rolfe's point, let's see what you can do.
Okay, but then, so new blood. Okay, Dan Loeb, he's got a big amount of money tied up in this, and he's got some ideas of what should happen. But can he actually turn this business around? I mean, are there things that he can do that other people have had a long time to try, let's face it, and failed? Is there something that he can really do here to make a big difference?
Well, he's going to empower Ross, right? And Ross probably has some ideas to turn around the business. There are some basically low-hanging fruit they can pick to try and juice the revenue. For starters, they can recapture more of a lot of Yahoo's ad inventory is sold through intermediaries, which basically buy it cheaply, sell it dearly. If Yahoo can sell more of that directly, they can capture some of that. They can revise their ad technology on the back end. They bought a company called Right Media.
But all this stuff is great, okay, but this is going to take time. Okay, so...
Well, these are some of the things that they could probably do rather quickly, but, and I think I know where you're going with this, can they actually turn around the core business?
Yeah.
Can we actually turn this Yahoo into an internet giant once again? I think I'm skeptical personally. They want to invest a lot in content. They want to try and do some content partnerships. Maybe that'll draw in more viewers.
Sounds like AOL. Has that been a success?
Sounds like AOL. I mean, maybe what they're going to do is Yahoo will say, well, we're not going to try and do the content ourselves. We're going to trust that Hollywood can create it, and we're just going to use ourselves as the portal, which is interesting, but if they're only drawing traffic so long as, you know, they have a lot of people going to check their Yahoo Mail, as that dwindles, will the content owners continue to give good content to Yahoo? But even if they can secure good content? So we come
back to this question of, you know, how much of the problem at Yahoo is a management problem? How much of it is just an intractable business problem that management keeps failing at? And so you're constantly trying to find new people to wrestle with the same problems that are very hard to solve. So we'll take Asia, for example. A large portion of Yahoo's value is tied up in Asia, and particularly in the stake in China, where, frankly, they have limited control over it, and it's very hard to see how they can sell it at a good price and get the money back into the US without paying huge taxes. I mean, is any new management going to solve that problem, or are these problems just the same old things that we're going to go round and round and hear all these new ideas about how we can do it, but everybody's picked at it from every angle already?
It's still difficult. The thing that Loeb brings is Harry Wilson, who's a restructuring expert, who's now going to be added to the board. hopefully, presumably, he can help with that negotiation. But I think you're right. Ultimately, it's still, look, you got one buyer for that stake. There's not a lot of liquidity. They're probably going to have to pay a lot in taxes. And then, by the way, what are you going to do with the cash when you get it back? Are you going to reinvest it in the business? Are you going to give it back to shareholders? That's another question that's going to be up
So I
for
have a
discussion.
final question for Neal here. 4 CEOs in 5 years. We have a new interim CEO. Is he still going to be in charge in a year's time?
Huh. So obviously that would just be a guess. I mean, yeah, I don't know. I think one of the things that we should take away from this is that unlike some other scenarios, the board itself has changed over. I think the number is 8 of the directors in the last year have changed over. And to me, that's a healthy sign from a corporate governance point of view. You've had a problem, you've had an issue. It's not just the CEO who's leaving. You're getting invested board members. So, you know, whether the problems are intractable or not, we'll have to wait and see. But I think the approach is correct. And one other quick thing on the governance front that we saw one of the directors who's a CEO of another company resign during this. And as a general point, completely unrelated to just Yahoo, I think it's a bad idea for active CEOs to sit on the boards of other companies. I mean, they have more than full-time jobs being public company CEOs, and I think if they're sitting on boards, and more is expected of directors in this day and age, even without crises, somebody's getting cheated.
So they need to slim down their
I think
portfolios.
so. Somebody's getting cheated out of their time.
Well, we should have you back on Main Street to discuss that another
Yeah.
time. But Neal, thanks very much. Rolfe, thanks for being on Main Street.